In Matthew chapter 16, Yeshua looked at his disciples and he asked the question, who do others say that I am? What if the question had been, what do other people say about you? What do they say? Who do they say you are? Would they have known their identity? Mike, you and I have talked about the issue of identity, especially in the Hebrew roots community, many times.
Yeah.
Consider the following scenario. A wedding party is at the end of an aisle, and the bride makes her entrance in her white garments, escorted down the aisle to pageantry style of music. And she gets down to the end of the aisle and she looks at the female portion of the wedding party and says, which one of us is supposed to be marrying the bridegroom? Does the bride that we've been talking about know who she is, or is she trying to be someone she's not to be more acceptable?
Maybe the question that you're getting from Matthew chapter 16 is not so much who do other people say that we are, but who do we think we are? And is there confusion? You know, today we live in a society of confusion.
A bit.
Just a slight, you go on any kind of site and it asks you for gender and it gives you 72 different options, which is really crazy. And I mean, I don't need to be a biologist to understand that there's only two. I can go outside and figure out it's raining, even though I don't have a degree in meteorology. So there's things that are just kind of common. But then when we go to the spiritual aspect, is some of the natural realm confusion entering into this spiritual realm that we're supposed to be living in and connected with. You mentioned identity, and my statement is that identity drives behavior. So if a person sees themselves as this denomination or that denomination or non-denomination, then they will live according to that identity. So here we are discussing the harlot, the concubine, the bride, and I think first of all to consider that all of us, it wasn't that many years ago that about this time of year, we have coming up. This week is Passover, or no, in 2 weeks is Passover, and then Easter will be the same weekend. Well, I would have said, that Passover thing, well, that's for the Jews. And so we're going to celebrate Easter, not understanding. It had no clue, really. But so my identity changed when I saw myself as Israel. But is the identity change, is the status transition, if you would want to call it that, is that an event or is it a process?
An event or a process? We tend to be event oriented.
Right.
If you look at what happens after Pesach, counting the days of unleavened bread, that's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Counting the Omer that we're getting ready to start doing here shortly, that's a process.
Right.
Processes properly engaged in bring us to culminating climactic events. Without the process, the event really doesn't mean this much. So we go through the house looking for the leaven. That's a process. It's after we know that the leaven of our lives is out that we can stand properly prepared to eat the Pesach. The kingdom coming It's an event, but we are in the process of that coming now. The bride, knowing that the wedding is to take place, the ceremony is an event. We are in the process of preparing ourselves as the bride. If you consider the process that Esther went through, soaking in oils and bathing and being perfumed and being cleansed, it's all metaphors to show us, you just don't show up at the event and say, because of who I am, I'm guaranteed entrance. Where's the process? Yeshua looked at, said in a parable that the master of a feast looked at one who came to the wedding feast without the wedding garment on and even asked him, how did you get in here? Throw him out. Why? Because he wasn't engaged in the process. Mike, is the bride hesitant about the identity of being the bride because she thinks the concubine doesn't have a necessary process? And it's easier and I don't know what the other word what I would be looking for. It's just easier to be the concubine than it is to be the bride and have the responsibility and the accountability of the bride.
And there's the two words that are very important, is that the concubine does not walk with a responsibility. Okay. It's kind of like, whatever I want to do is okay. And so is it possible here that to go back to my question, is this transitional state is an event or a process? Could the answer, imagine that be yes, that in the mind of the Almighty, when we accept the ketubah, that is the event, that he takes us out of that concubine status and places us fully into that bride status, but it is a process of the transition of our own mind. So you can have a bride that's acting like a concubine because they don't really know how to be a bride yet. To go through, to take it into metaphors that we're familiar with a husband and a wife. You go through this time of engagement, this time of changing a lot of things. You go through the planning of the wedding. You go through the wedding day, and then when somebody says, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," that's when things kind of go crazy sometimes, because the bride and the groom had not really thought through that moment. That when you say yes. I do, you had a different status. You are now, that status is an event, but it's going to take time for a bride to begin to act like a bride, a groom to be able to act like, or I guess better said, a bride to act like a wife, a groom to act like a husband.
Yes.
That is a transition, and you can get kind of lost. It's like I have seen marriages through the years that, I want to, I got to have my night out with the guys. I got to have my time with the girls. It's like, okay, I want to have the privileges, the excitement of this side, and I also want to have the excitement of the other side. So it's like, which it's a confusion of identity, a confusion of responsibility, a confusion of just basically not understanding, or it's a confusion of acceptance is the word I'm trying to find there. A confusion of accepting the status change that you're now supposed to be walking in?
Let's go back to the marriage situation or the marital uniqueness of Yaakov, of Jacob. On the first night that he spent with Leah, he thought Leah was her sister Raquel, the one that he really had devotion and love for. In the darkness, he didn't recognize that it was Leah and not her sister. Leah would have experienced all this enormous passion and love and, expression of that he had been saving up for Raquel for years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just all fully given to Leah. She chased that night for the rest of her life. Always looking for, she had to have known the difference. He doesn't love me or respond to me now the way he did then.
Yeah.
And she had to, in her mind, be thinking, all of that passion and love and intimacy that he gave me that first night, he's now giving to her.
And he's treating her like a concubine.
And she has been reduced in her estimation.
Mm-hmm.
Raquel has to be looking at him and saying, she's given him all these children. Does he love her for the children more than he loves me? I think the bride, not only does the bride, the one who carries the ketubah, who walks according to the Torah, have some sense of jealousy that Yeshua still shows up on the Sunday morning gatherings in response to the offerings of worship and praise and dance and song. It's a time of shared intimacy with them, and it's legitimate. For those that are watching, stop criticizing and speaking down on those who are gathering on Sunday morning because, they don't keep the Torah. Yeshua is showing up and receiving their devotion and their love, as he should.
Well, kind of the same as he met me in a church setting. I didn't understand. Where did we come
from? That's where we found him.
I didn't understand bride concubine. I understood kind of, I understood a lot of things, but I didn't understand this at all. And so, here we are calling ourselves the bride in that day, not understanding that we're living as a concubine. And then he walks into that situation and offers us a status change. He did that with me, did that with you.
Sure.
We're both, well aware of those time frames. And so there's no reason for me or you to go back and start to, condemn the concubine. Wouldn't it be a better idea to pray that those that are still left in concubine status would be given that same opportunity?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do we think that he only has enough love for me, or kind of a jealousy thing? So we can become a bit jealous over his affection to someone else.
Raquel, not only was Leah jealous of Raquel, I think Raquel was jealous of Leah.
Yeah.
So the concubine has to be looking at us and having some sense of jealousy as well. Why are they doing those feasts? They're having a special gathering time with him that we don't have. Mm-hmm. What is the one draw that they have? Tell us about these feasts. We're not doing, no one is teaching us about these. If we knew them, we would do them. What do you mean you're gathering on a Friday night for a special meal with the king? Tell me more about that. Once they find out the option, those who are genuine in their affection to him, I think there's little standing in the way of making a realistic choice here. We have to understand, Mike, that it's going both ways. The bride, as we're discussing today, when you said a while ago, it just really clicked in my mind. The officiant says, "I now present to you, Mr. and Mrs. whoever, husband, you may now kiss your wife," or your husband and wife. You've gone from bridegroom, bride to husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
The realization somewhere in the first return to a work week after we had gotten married that I was someone's husband. I remember it, I'm just a kid, but I remember in it, it really began to dawn on me. I have a wife that I'm responsible for, and she's looking to me for the role of a husband to her. We enjoy the status of being called bride because we think of dazzling white garments and ceremony. Wife, though, is the part of our walk that is daily devotion, daily focus,
mm-hmm.
shared relationship, shared dreams and visions of the future. We hear the husband's plans and desires for the future as outlined in this Torah, and we partner with him to see them come to pass. We are not looking for a night out with those that are no longer in our status per se. We're looking for the ongoing relationship. Anyone that's been married any length of time will tell you that it's not honeymoon for the rest of your life. Yes, there's intimacy. Yes, there's love, and there's devotion and passion. But more often than that, there is shared meals, Shabbat, feast days. There is raising of children, which is future generations, raising our families, bringing others to the knowledge of being included with us. There is teaching the heart of the husband to the family, teaching Torah, understanding the word. There is acknowledgement of who the husband is. That's worship, and there's devotion to the king, etc. Our husband is not insignificant. When you read the Psalms 31 or the Proverbs 31 woman, she wants her husband dressed well, standing in the gates and being significant.
Mm-hmm.
Our husband, the bridegroom of the body of Messiah, he is the most significant husband of all. And our status with him is a high and elevated status. We're not married to an as insignificant one, but to the most significant one. We need to walk as such. That needs to be in the forefront of our mind. We are called to a high place of significance. The world and the kingdom is going to know who we are.
Well, you mentioned that Proverbs 31 woman is you could look at it that the wife, the Proverbs 31 woman, is her life is about making her husband look good.
Yes,
which is the concept in Scripture of for his namesake. A fascinating study in Scripture is how many times that comes out. For his namesake, he's doing these things for his namesake. And so, as a mutual friend of ours, I hear them on a prayer meeting that I'm a part of. That many times they'll say these words: "May we make you look good." That's what our place is making him look good. Now, you brought up something else that is a very important part of the status of concubine versus bride, and that is inheritance. The concubine does not have an inheritance to pass on to the children. The bride has the inheritance. So we have something to pass on generation to generation. That that passing on generation to generation, you bring up the fact of of raising children. The wife ends up being the one that's raising children for future generations of that seed, that bride seed, to continue on. Anyone that's raised children knows that that can be kind of a dirty job, a little stinky at times. It's not the fun and games. And so does the bride start looking back at the concubine and think, wow, she doesn't have all these, again, responsibilities that I do, or even dare say, looking toward the harlot who has zero responsibility. And therefore, the bride becomes conflicted in their own identity, not understanding that their identity is about future. It's not always about present.
Let's give a scriptural example here. Abraham had a primary bride in Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
He had a concubine in Hagar. And twice he had to send Hagar away. He blessed them, sent them away. Abraham had 6 sons with Keturah. When he was nearing death, he blessed those 6 sons with gifts. So there is blessing in being a part of the concubine status, but they were sent away so that they would not contend with Yitzhak, Isaac, for the inheritance. It says he gave everything that he had to Yitzhak. He gave blessings, some sort of materialistic goods, blessings, favor, etc., to these sons. They are indeed his sons, and acknowledged as such, circumcised as such, but sent away.
Mm-hmm.
When it came time to find a bride for Yitzhak, the way the Torah describes it, he put all of his possessions in the hand of the servant that was sent to look for the bride. Now, did this servant, did he load down 10 camels? Were 10 camels able to hold everything that Abraham had? No, they were laden with gifts and supplies, carrying his escort men with him. He would have had a scroll, Mike, a document that described all that belonged to Yitzhak. The Torah, the word, described everything. And that was what Rivka or Rebecca's family saw. They could read the ketubah and understand, our daughter, if she marries this man, will be marrying into all that is detailed here. And she was willing to go sight unseen to marry this esteemed man. Yah has given to us his word, the Torah, to help us to understand all that pertains to our king, to our husband, and to ourselves. Reading the word alone, we've not seen Messiah. Sight unseen, we're willing to leave those who are on the perimeter, the outside, the fringe, to come be a part of the tent of our husband. And I find it interesting that Yitzhak took his bride and put her in the primary bride tent of Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we belong.
Mm-hmm.
Rivka had no competition. Those that are in concubine status now, they focus on the intimacy and the blessing because that's primarily what they have. We read the Torah and think about the coming of the kingdom. We need to balance that and understand how blessed we are, how favored we are, how esteemed we are, and the opportunity that we have intimacy with him as well. He does receive our worship. It can be as significant as anyone else experiences. But there seems to be this, jealousy. Well, he seems to be more passionate with the concubine than with us. No. Change your attitude a little bit, and you will find that he will respond powerfully to our song, to our dance, to our praise, to our prayers, and get out of the mindset of, well, we just have an official relationship. It's not, it is official, but it's not superficial.
Well, and this is where we pick up this idea that and I've been in these congregations, Messianic, Hebrew roots congregations, that are following to the best of their ability the Torah, but have said, we don't need that time of worship. We don't need those things. This is not for us. We're just going to study the Word. I call that the boring bride. Okay. And so don't be jealous when the intimacy is being given to the concubine, when we might be living a life in which we're like, I don't care about it anymore. Up the affection level. If we up our affection level to the bridegroom, maybe there's the key. Just saying.
So what husband has not come home and tried to offer a sense of affection to his wife, give her a hug, give her a kiss, etc., and she's busy, pulling her hair out of her face, still trying to correct the kids, and her response is, you have no idea what I've had to deal with today. He's wanting to show love and affection to her, but she is so engaged in what she counts as her responsibilities and her requirements that she doesn't have time for that right now. And I understand on the human part, yes, it's
we're putting allegories. Again, we're putting this into allegorical terminology. We got to be careful when we talk about allegories, because when it can be taken to a place of confusion and chaos.
Yeah. What I'm trying to describe is that when he is seeking our attention, that's the most important thing. He understands our requirements, our necessities, our responsibilities, but he's trying to break in on that and say, give me 5 minutes. I have something I want to say to you. It will energize us to get all the other stuff that we think is important. Think of Yeshua at Martha's house. Martha, you're concerned about so many things, but Miriam, has chosen the best part, and I will not take that from her.
Mm-hmm.
Never think as a bride that you have to step in backwards through any door. You go in on the husband's arm, and you're more than a trophy wife. You're more than a trophy
I don't think
wife.
I'm going to try to go there. Well, Barry, as we end up here, for a Wednesday morning, it seems a lot like a Sunday afternoon, which it actually is. That's why, if people are wondering, a little different lighting here. Barry and Laura is heading out to spend a little time with Laura's mom. So blessings on your trip, and we're planning next week to get to this idea of the sota. Unless something changes.
Something changes. May the Father encourage you, and may you find great joy in preparing for upcoming Pesach shortly in the near future. And thank you for watching Foundations for Life. Mike and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
Barry, let me throw a little plug in here for you. I know that you're going to be traveling, but Barry has written. I actually use it. I did a little change for myself, but Barry has written a Haggadah for Passover. It is the Seder of the Exile. And so if you're someone that's kind of looking around going, reclining in exile is just not really what I'm feeling like I should be doing, email Barry, have him send you a copy of the Seder that he's written. And I've used it a number of times. We'll be using it again this year, and it's quite a blessing.
Actually, it is what you can write me as well. That's fine. You can go to the B'nai Yosef website, BNEYOSEFNA.com, B'naiYosefNA.com. And the Seder has been posted there, and it's for free download. To those who download it, you are free to alter it to your own desire and need. You are free to record it being used. You are free to duplicate it and hand it out. And you are free to post it on your social media pages. I don't place any boundaries on it. The Father gave it to me. I give it to the body of Messiah. Use it and let the Father bless you in doing so.
Basically, the copyright law is this: if you're going to copy it right.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care, Barry.
See you later. Shalom.